سلام تخطيتلتي شاباي تي في كما يتغنيوم إذا غتلو زغرب مدب بانق إنجليز زغرب مدب كوينو علمو نتو ما بدقز تولدو دكنان أحواتنان مو بسنك حترت قانقا تغرنيا تاريخ أقرو من هزوو من كمون بهلو من كام مفلات بخيرم ويون كم تزدل فلتت تاريخ هزوو من هاقرو من بهلو من بسنك زي معتاقوم قداينا يتومني إرترا نخصوتو كيدا كسو زحدرو زلو قرو بيتنان نايم معرباوين حيلتاتن كوينوم نزلو زيغاتات ناس لزخونة حدر أنا بكلو من خبات صح شير برو كم زع مسألة تمساسالي مدب نغطسالي بشاباي تي في قرب سلازخونة دما سبسكرايب بمقبار نزموصو قالت كل مدبات تقادس تكونو بخبرة تعدمو شاباي تي في.
Have you ever wondered how the seed of resilience was sown in Eritrea's struggle for independence? Our story begins when Eritrea, a country with a rich and vibrant history, was a chessboard for foreign powers. Over several centuries, different parts of present-day Eritrea were repeatedly invaded by the Ottoman Turks and the Egyptians. Feudal lords and kings from areas in present-day Ethiopia and Sudan also sought to extend their dominion over this land. As we transition into the late 19th century, a new player emerged on the scene: Italy. The Italians began purchasing and laying claim to parts of the country, steadily penetrating from the coast into the interior highlands. Their aim was clear: to establish a settler colonial state. This colonization of Eritrea was not only tolerated, but encouraged by the British, who saw a strategic benefit in the development of Italian influence in the Red Sea. On the first day of January in 1890, Italy's King Umberto boldly proclaimed Eritrea as Italy's Colonia Primogenita, or firstborn colony, with Massawa pronounced as its capital. This marked the beginning of a new era for Eritrea, one characterized by foreign rule and domination. Over the next 50 years, the people of Eritrea were subjected to forced servitude, apartheid, and a litany of dark horrors and indignities within a brutal colonial system that promoted European greatness and superiority. But beneath the surface, something else was brewing. The Eritrean spirit, known for its resilience, was beginning to stir. Despite the oppression, the people of Eritrea were not broken. Instead, they were slowly nurturing a spirit of resistance, a determination to reclaim their land and their rights. Thus, under the yoke of colonial rule, the spirit of resistance began to stir in Eritrea. This marked the birth of a struggle for independence, for freedom, and for self-determination. The seed of resilience was sown, and it would grow to shape the destiny of a nation. What does a nation subjected to forced servitude, apartheid, and dark horrors look like? While Eritreans were subjected to a myriad of inhumane treatments and indignities, the Italians, encouraged by the British who sought to counterbalance French influence in the Red Sea, began to stake their claim on Eritrea. By the dawn of the 20th century, Italy had pronounced Eritrea its firstborn colony, with Massawa as its capital. This began a half-century reign of terror, where Eritreans were forced into servitude, subjected to apartheid, and exposed to an array of dark horrors within an inherently brutal colonial system. Yet, as paradoxical as it may seem, this era of Italian colonial rule was also a time of significant socio-economic transformation and industrial progress. Yes, the same oppressors who subjected Eritreans to forced servitude and apartheid were also the architects of a modern Eritrean state, setting its modern territorial boundaries and sparking industrial growth. Modern port facilities, health centers, airports, workshops, factories, roads, railways, and communication facilities sprung up, placing Eritrea among the best in Africa in terms of infrastructure. By the 1940s, Eritrea was described as highly developed. The nation had evolved from a place of oppression to a hub of growth and development. The Italians, despite their brutal rule, had inadvertently laid the foundation for a strong, resilient Eritrean state. However, this development did not quench the thirst for freedom that the Eritrean people held. Rather, it fueled it. The people of Eritrea had tasted modernity, had experienced progress, and they yearned for the freedom to control their own destiny. The desire for independence grew stronger with each passing day, and the Eritreans were ready to fight for it. Despite the hardships, Eritrea emerged as a highly developed state, but the desire for freedom only grew stronger. Imagine fighting for your freedom, only to have your victory snatched away at the last moment. This was the harsh reality for Eritreans in April of 1941, when the British-led Allied forces triumphed over fascist Italy in the Horn of Africa. This victory marked the end of Italy's East African Empire, and in theory, the dawn of a new era for Eritrea. The British made promises to Eritrean soldiers, who were then serving in the Italian colonial army. They were told that their independence would be secured if they assisted the British forces, led by Lieutenant General William Platt, in defeating the Italians. Many Eritreans, enticed by the promise of freedom, deserted the Italian army, commanded by Lieutenant General Luigi Frusci, and joined forces with the British. Their efforts were instrumental in ensuring a swift British victory. But when the dust of war settled, the promise of independence proved to be nothing more than an illusion. Instead of the freedom they had fought for, Eritrea was placed under a British caretaker military administration, while the international community deliberated on its fate. This was a bitter blow for the Eritreans who had risked their lives in the hope of securing their country's independence. The British military administration, far from being a liberating force, was a continuation of foreign domination. What's more, the British authorities not only dismantled Eritrea's industry and infrastructure, which had seen significant growth under Italian rule, but also attempted to stoke local division and discord. This was a strategic move, designed to ensure that Britain's recommendations regarding Eritrea's sovereignty would be accepted by the international community. The Eritreans found themselves in a situation far removed from the independence they had been promised. They were once again under foreign rule, their hopes of self-determination dashed. But this was not the end of the story. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter in Eritrea's long and turbulent history. Betrayed and subjugated, Eritrea's fight for freedom was only just beginning. What does it take to wage one of the longest, most destructive wars for liberation in modern African history? It takes a people fueled by the fire of resilience, the spirit of endurance, and an unyielding desire for freedom. This was the story of Eritrea, a nation whose fight for independence was as fierce as it was relentless. In the wake of World War II, Eritrea was left in the hands of a British caretaker administration with a promise of independence. Yet the promise was broken. Instead of freedom, Eritreans were met with an administration that not only destroyed their industry and infrastructure, but also attempted to sow local division and discord. The British recommended to the international community that Eritrea's sovereignty be compromised. But the Eritrean people were not to be denied their rightful place in the world. They rallied together, their resilience shining through the despair. They organized themselves into liberation movements, the most prominent being the Eritrean Liberation Front, or the ELF, formed in the early 1960s. This marked the beginning of Eritrea's armed struggle for independence. The fight was not easy. For 3 decades, Eritreans faced off against a much larger and better equipped Ethiopian force. They endured airstrikes, artillery bombardments, and ground assaults. Yet they never wavered. Their unity and determination saw them through the darkest of times. In the face of overwhelming odds, they used their intimate knowledge of the land to their advantage, employing guerrilla warfare tactics that baffled their opponents. They turned their limited resources into opportunities, crafting homemade weapons and converting captured enemy equipment for their use. Every setback was met with a renewed vigor. Every loss fueled their determination. The fight for independence was not just a battle against an external foe. It was a struggle against injustice, a fight for dignity, a quest for a rightful place in the world. Finally, in May 1991, after 30 years of relentless struggle, Eritrea emerged victorious. Their enemy was vanquished, their homeland reclaimed, their independence won. And so, through blood, sweat, and tears, Eritrea finally won its hard-fought independence. What does resilience look like in the face of tremendous adversity? Let's take a look at Eritrea today. Since gaining independence in 1991, after one of the longest and most destructive wars for liberation in modern African history, Eritrea has demonstrated a remarkable determination to move forward. Despite enduring the struggle of a long war, the resilience of the Eritrean people has shone through. They have rebuilt their nation from the ground up, with a focus on self-reliance and sustainable development. This has involved a significant investment in infrastructure, including roads, ports, and communication facilities, many of which had been destroyed during the war. In addition to infrastructure, Eritrea has made strides in the realm of public health. The country has made significant progress in reducing child and maternal mortality rates and combating diseases like malaria and HIV/AIDS. In fact, Eritrea is one of the few African countries on track to meet most of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Education, too, has been a priority. The government has invested heavily in education, with a focus on increasing access to quality education for all Eritreans. This commitment to education is reflective of the country's long-term vision for sustainable development and prosperity. Eritrea's economy has also shown signs of resilience. Despite the challenges of a post-conflict economy, Eritrea has managed to maintain steady economic growth. Agriculture remains the backbone of the economy, providing livelihoods for the majority of Eritreans. Moreover, the country is rich in mineral resources, with significant deposits of gold, copper, and zinc, offering potential for future economic growth. However, Eritrea still faces challenges. There are issues of governance, human rights, and regional security to address. But the Eritrean people, with their history of resilience, are determined to overcome these challenges, just as they have overcome past adversities. Indeed, the story of Eritrea is a testament to the indomitable spirit of its people, a story of resilience and tenacity that continues to this day.